It wasn't bringing in strike breakers necessarily that started the general strike. You know, I thought about that a lot since that. We'd seen strike breakers. But the thing was using the police force that we were paying taxes for to beat us off our own streets. We couldn't even walk down the main street of Oakland. Now, this is the first step toward fascism.
That was Joe Chaudet, a participant in one of the most monumental events in Oakland history. That event was the General Strike of 1946, and this December 3rd will mark its 31st anniversary. For 54 hours, more than 100,000 workers from 142 AFL unions virtually shut the entire city down. The General Strike is one part of Oakland's past that Oakland's government and business establishment would rather forget. What's more, they'd rather we forgot it too. But the phantoms of thousands of working people thronging the streets, tying up traffic, and skirmishing with the police should be remembered. 31 years is not that long ago, and many of the participants in the General Strike still live in the Bay Area. East Bay Beat talked with a few of them so that we could get at least a taste of our lost local heritage, and maybe even learn a few lessons for the present. Late fall 1946. The war is over, and an uneasy peace hovers over the country, clouded by renewed hostilities against the Soviet Union. U.S. working people had fought first the Great Depression, then the Second World War, and felt entitled to a share of the war-inflated prosperity that had set record-breaking profits for business. But business had other ideas. There had been a business-labor truce during the war. On one hand, this meant that the militant labor movement of the 30s had been in mothballs, but meanwhile union membership had been allowed to swell. But corporations had grown even faster, and with their accumulated profits to fall back on, it was an ideal time to roll back the gains won by workers during the New Deal. Joe Chaudet headed the Alameda County local of the International Typographical Union and edited the East Bay Labor Journal at the time. He describes the post-war attitude of big business.
Look, they were all billionaires or millionaires. Look at Kaiser. Look at Henry J. Kaiser, a multi-billionaire. Look at all of the shipbuilding. Look at the airplane factories. Look at all of that. They made it all. Then when these people came on back, and I mean, you know, my brother Americans and also the gals that came back from the war, and when they held out their hand for just a little piece of pie, the answer was no. The answer was no completely. We're not going to have unionization. It was all right during the war, but no more. No more. We had to do it. We had to sign a contract with the government for fair employment. We had to sign a contract because of the fact that they were in the driver's seat. Now we're in the driver's seat. And they had no more sympathy for those people coming back than the man in the moon.
Labor met this business offensive with a record 5,000 strikes involving more than 4.5 million workers in 1946. Meanwhile, prices and profits skyrocketed, while wages dipped below their level in 1940. Minorities and women faced mass layoffs from the war-related industrial jobs they had held earlier, such as in the shipyards and munitions plants. Women were either forced back into the home or into lower-paying jobs. Many of them went to work in retail department stores where job security was as slim as the pay. Conn's and Hastings were two such department stores in downtown Oakland at the time. In the fall of 1946, many of the workers at these stores signed up with the Retail Clerks Union. Both stores refused to recognize the union, and at least one woman was fired for joining up. Workers at Hastings began picketing for union recognition in late October 1946, and Conn's workers followed suit in early November. The stores managed to keep going with the help of strike breakers and the financial backing of the Retail Merchants Association, which was a powerful organization of 28 retail stores in Oakland. But the stores were hurt by the refusal of Teamsters to deliver merchandise through the picket lines. Stock was dwindling from Conn's and Hastings' shelves, and it appeared that new inventory must be received for the Christmas rush. On December 1st, the Retail Merchants Association and the city government took action which changed the entire nature of the dispute. The employers had contracted a firm of professional strike-breaking non-union Teamsters from Los Angeles to deliver the merchandise. Oakland Police Chief Bob Tracy volunteered to supervise the crossing of the picket lines. On Saturday, November 30th, City Hall warned the clerks' union that merchandise would be brought to the stores after 2 a.m. Sunday morning. About 70 pickets from various AFL unions arrived at the store entrances well before sunrise. But the pickets never had the opportunity to meet the scab Teamsters face-to-face. 300 of Oakland's finest made sure of that. Joe Chaudet was there.
The police had done their job the night before when they beat us all out of the alleys, pushed us with those damn billy clubs. I was black and blue here for months. And they all marched over. I don't want to use the expression, in Prussian goose steps. But it was damn near that when they all marched over and walked right on down the alley, pushed all of the pickets out, set up machine guns right in the middle of the square, facing cons, right in the middle of the square, had all of the cops just taking their billy clubs, shoving you this way, bumping you, hitting you in the throat, doing any damn thing just to get you out, pushed all of the labor people out of the alleys, down the street, put out a cordon right around Cons and Hastings. Then all of a sudden the parade started. The only thing, as I say, they missed was top hats and a brass band.
The parade, as Chaudet calls it, consisted of some of Oakland's most powerful business figures riding in open cars, including Oakland Tribune owner Joseph Noland, whose longtime dominance over city politics became legendary. Bringing up the rear were the scab trucks carrying $500,000 worth of merchandise. Al Kidder, who was the picket captain for Con's striking workers, was present at the scene, and he witnessed one of labor's first responses to the police activity.
The way it came about is that they cordoned off the 8 square blocks, and Al Brown, I think it was Al Brown was his name, was the head of the Carmen's local at that time. The streetcars were still running on Broadway, and he came down Broadway in a streetcar. And the police were out there, and they had Broadway blocked off. And he came up to the blockade, and the cop said, "It's all right, you can take your streetcar through." And he said, "Well, what's the deal?" They told him what they were doing, and he said, "Well, no, I consider this a police picket line, and I've never crossed a picket line in my life, and I'm not about to now." So he climbed out, he took the controls out of the streetcar, climbed out of the streetcar, and that was it. That was the spark that started the whole thing at that particular time, because every streetcar backed up behind him. They couldn't move his streetcar. He told the buses to stop, and they had an emergency meeting, and for 3 days, just about, nothing turned in Alameda County.
At the emergency meeting of the AFL Central Labor Council, all but one union voted to call a general strike for 5 a.m. Tuesday morning, December 3rd. The strike included only AFL unions, although the CIO, which was separate at the time, publicly declared its support. But in Alameda County, the AFL was by far the dominant of the two organizations, and for all practical purposes, the walkout resulted in a total shutdown. All public transportation, construction, hotels, restaurants, deliveries, theaters, newspapers, and stores were closed. Essential services such as hospital deliveries were continued, but the absence of all buses, streetcars, and taxis closed the schools and clogged the Bay Bridge with a massive traffic jam. Meanwhile, downtown Oakland swarmed with a jubilant crowd of 5,000 to 10,000 workers. Joe Chaudet describes the scene.
Everybody was marching around. They had a band down there or something. It just was chaos, that's all. Nobody knew, no direction, no nothing, you know. And nothing was moving. Where else are you going to go? Well, the theaters were down, the restaurants were down. What are you going to do? Everybody was having a good time, but the crowd was good. Nothing unruly. I didn't see any liquor, didn't see any, well, where could you buy it? It was a holiday mood. It was a feeling of comradeship. And it was the feeling that, well, we're all together in this thing, you know. And it was a good, warm, healthy feeling. It was more like what this country should be. I mean, that is the feeling that I had. So it was an orderly, but I mean, the noise and everything else, you know, and cheering and running and everything, you know. This union's out, this union out, that's on, rah, 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 you know, that was it. And Then all of the wild rumors, you know. Hear this, hear this, hear this. Forget it. Don't pay any attention to rumors. They realized, you know, what they had done. You know, we did this. Nobody else. And that's a good feeling. We did this, and we'll call the shots, you know. And it was real good. But during it, there were several meetings at the Athens Club with all of the big wigs in Oakland and the Downtown Merchants Association. My God, you thought, oh, the tears were so, you know, wrecking the city of Oakland and everything else. Nothing could wreck the city of Oakland, especially something like that. But it was humorous. It was humorous. But Oakland never suffered as much from the general strike as they have from the stupidity at City Hall.
The general strike came to an abrupt and inconclusive end Thursday morning, December 5th. Although there were probably many reasons for it ending when it did, two obvious factors were the order given by the head of the Teamsters International Union, Dave Beck, for his members to return to work, and a rather vague assurance by City Hall that the police would not be used to break strikes in the future. Workers at Conn's and Hastings continued their strike until May 1947, when they signed an apparently disappointing contract with the stores. Only with a renewed organizing effort in 1954 did the workers at these department stores gain solid union representation. One extremely positive development that did come out of the general strike, however, was the formation of a political coalition between the AFL and CIO to run a slate of 5 candidates for city council in May of 1947. 4 of the 5 candidates won, leaving the coalition one shy of a council majority. But in future years, one of the 4 Labor slate council members was recalled, another died, and by the 50s, City Council was once more completely devoid of any labor representation. The communist witch hunt, among other factors, deeply divided and weakened a labor movement which had seemed destined for ever-increasing militancy in 1946. Still, the general strike of 1946 serves as an important reminder of the potential power of working people, and many lessons can be drawn from this event. Paul Montauk of the Socialist Workers' Party was a member of the steelworkers in the CIO in 1946, and he participated in developing the political coalition which formed between the AFL and the CIO. He offers some of his impressions and insights on the meaning of the strike.
The study of the Oakland General Strike is both a study of what happened in this country in the working class during and immediately following World War II, on the one hand, and also as contrast to other strikes which were led by radical leaders who were very conscious of the need to build a political radical alternative to capitalism. Was essentially led by people who fundamentally believed in capitalism. And they had no concept, no realization, no consciousness of the existence of class struggle. Yet, my point of view is that in spite of that, they did a rather remarkable job. That's one example of many that we look to, of individuals who are not necessarily radicals, but who are in response to the pressure and the needs of the mass, and I might add, the viciousness of the capitalist class and the hostility of the capitalist class, will engage in class struggle activity. So, without articulating any of these things, possessive of a militancy and a desire to organize, and then being met with the threat of these goddamn crazy Nolan cops who cleaned the streets, all that stuff, stole their cars, everything. Bang, it happened. And in a sense, the gains of the general strike there was a big argument about who won and who lost, right? They actually won it just by calling it. Because right after that, one of the major grievances was the traditional role of the police department in always coming down and beating up strikers and beating up pickets and terrorizing them and all this and that. And the neutralization or disappearance, in a sense, of the police department. That is a fantastic thing which occurred. They had the power. And the realization that the capitalist class is a lousy minority. You know, it's just a few people. Whereas it's the working class who controls and does it. It wasn't a very conscious thing, but it was a realization. They had the permit system, the permit committee. You know, people who participated in the anti-war movement who were fighting against the Oakland Army base would have loved to have been there when the guy came down to the permit committee to ask for permission to move a ship, the general or something like that. And there's a trade union committee saying, well, we'll let you move this ship, but we won't let you move that one, because the sailors, you know, were supporting the strike too. Okay? The very fact that in order to open up a place or to get a restaurant open or to make a delivery or to move a ship, they had to get the permission of the labor movement because it was so powerful. You know? In other words, they had it. And they didn't want it. They wanted to divest themselves of this because they were worried about it. Because, you know, something had opened up whereby without any planning or consciousness or full realization of what was going to happen, it happened. And after 54 hours, they settled it. But nevertheless, one can characterize the Oakland General Strike as being the high point of the whole post-war strike wave. As contrasted to the struggle that before, raised it to its highest level during that period of just moving de facto from an economic struggle to one that actually posed political power.
What you've heard tonight has been mostly excerpts from an hour-long documentary produced last year on the 30th anniversary of the Oakland General Strike. That same program will be rebroadcast this Friday, December 2nd at 12 noon, the eve of the 31st anniversary. So if you'd like to hear a more extensive and thorough description and analysis of that event from those who participated in it, be sure to tune in this Friday, December 2nd at 12 noon. This program was produced by Craig Gordon, Ed Schoenfeld, Ken Russell, Vic Rubin, and Tim Reagan. For East Bay Beat, thanks for listening.
East Bay Beat, a project of the New American Movement, brings you reports of East Bay issues every other Wednesday evening at 8:30 on KPFA. 2 weeks from tonight, our show may run a little later than usual, as KPFA will be bringing you a live remote broadcast of Taj Mahal from La Peña in Berkeley. If you have any questions or suggestions regarding East Bay Beat programs, please write to us at KPFA, 2207 Shattuck Avenue, Berkeley, California, 94704. For East Bay Beat, this is Pacey Hammond. Good night.